I think a problem with being such like a cool, chill, hilarious lady is that sometimes people take too many liberties with me. And like they think we're chill like that when we're not.
Give me an example.
Okay, so I was playing at a poker club, not to be named. Could have been in California. It wasn't, but it could have been. Or Nevada. It wasn't, but it could have been.
Florida?
Definitely wasn't Florida.
Oregon.
It could have been.
It could have been. It could have been. So I was sitting at I first sat down and like, I've been having trouble having the confidence and the energy to play live lately. But I got up, I did my spin class, I put on makeup and an outfit. I thought my ass looked high and tight. I walked in that room with confidence. I sit down at a 1-2 table waiting for a bigger game. And the first dealer that gets in the box goes, "Oh, hey, Caitlin, you look like you haven't slept in 2 days." I had slept. I was looking damn near as good as I'm able to. So I was like, okay. I guess that's a compliment. He like backtracked. He's like, he's my buddy. It's fine. But then I get transferred to the bigger game. I go play 1-3 and I sit down in the new box and I decide, you know what, Caitlin, you've been too quiet. You're too on your phone. Like, get involved. Start to bring out, the Caitlin the people came to see. So I start dicking around with the guys across the table from me and, being like, does your wife know about me? Like standard Caitlin jokes. And then I catch the dealer out of the corner of my eye, and this is sort of like a shyer dealer. So I was like, oh my gosh, this dealer is like, Caitlin, stop doing your antics until I get out of here. Please spare me. He probably hates me more than anyone in the room. And this guy looks me in the eye and says, "It's true." I was like, okay, I guess nobody in the room wants my money today. Nobody wants me to tip them.
It's really wild when you're expecting some sort of compliment or whatever, and then they go the other way with it and drop you down a couple rungs when you thought you were going to be climbing up. It happened to me about 90 seconds ago. You told me that I looked like somebody, and I was like, "Ooh, she's gonna give me like a celebrity doppelganger." Yeah, and you come back.
I did, to be fair.
Pinocchio without the strings.
Marionette looking ass.
Yeah, that was great.
You also have a very prominent, bold nose. It's got a great slope to it, but it does, it has some depth to it as well.
Of the nose. From
tip to cheekbone, I think there's some yardage there. Welcome to the Texas Poker Experience. My name is Caitlin Kamusky. That's my co-host, Craig Sear. We're kind of okay people. We have a Texas poker podcast, and we're joined by a very special guest today. As some of you may have known, there's some scary legislation coming out of Houston, and a lot of the poker world is starting to panic. We don't know, is Texas poker done forever? Well, we're diving into it because we are joined by the ex facto founder of Texas Poker, aka the White Knight, and also a history of lobbying. Craig made this table. Fuck him. I just spilled my drink on the belt. That's why I said that. Please welcome to your ears, Sam Von Kennel.
Hey,
Welcome
happy
back,
to be
Sam.
back. Thanks
Welcome
for having
back.
me again.
Okay, so should we just get straight into the bill stuff, Craig? Do we want to jump right into it?
I wanted to
people
talk
are
about
panicking.
you becoming famous again
I guess we can fit that in.
on WPT.com.
Thank you.
I was surprised yesterday to find an article that I didn't even know was written because you were humble about it, and all of a sudden it's just out. And so, pretty nice piece talking about some of your most recent tournament success, and a little bit of it alluded to a little bit of burnout, which kind of surprised me, I guess, to read, because I talk to you pretty regularly, and it's not something that I've felt. So I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about it.
Oh, hilarious. You haven't got that. Yeah, I've been dying. I'm drowning over here, homie. You didn't know? No, so the writer of the article, Jeff Walsh, recently took a position at WPD.com to do features. He asked me and at first I thought I was going to be part of like a larger piece where he was following a couple of people, but it ended up just being an article about me, which was a surprise to me. And gave an interview maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago over Zoom that he recorded. We talked for like an hour. So if I said any one thing that pissed you off, it was probably a part of a greater speech that you would have been totally okay with.
Are you trying to say that context matters?
No, that for sure
not. In journalism. Journalism doesn't matter at all.
Just cherry pick. Get a pull quote. Make me sound spicy.
Did you have fun at the Biggest Little Game in Texas Part 2?
I did, y'all. Craig runs a 25-50 game where over half the table buys in for more than $10K. It's stupid, and we all love it. We love it.
So, yeah, once a month. I've got to get you to come to one of these. I think you would have a good time.
You would really have fun. Nobody in the game is talented. I know you're worried, but no one is talented.
So, you know how the first time somebody comes to Texas to play poker, they're like, oh, I play 1-2 or I play 2-5 or whatever. So they go and they get their membership at one of these clubs and they sit down at their 1-2 table and they look around. They've got $300 in front of them. And they're like, what in the holy name of God? Everybody has $1,500 in front of them. This is the deepest 1-2 game I've ever seen. And it's just a shock to people that have never seen it. My idea for a silly, stupid, good time game was let's just take that, but to the max. So I brought the blinds down to 25 cent, 50 cent, but it's uncapped from the start. And players are encouraged to abuse that non-cap. Mm-hmm. And I specifically invite players that will abuse it. And it
was straddled around to the button. I didn't play it for very long, but I was there for a few orbits, and it was straddling to $32.
$32 straddle in a 50-cent game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really great. I kind of as a goof, it was planned. I bought in for $50,000.
It's true, y'all. I was there. This motherfucker had $50,000 in front of him. He didn't play a hand. I know you're thinking, oh, wow, cool, big dick Craig. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He sat on that, and I just asked him if he went all in at one point, and I'll let him tell the story, but just spoiler alert, it's sad.
I did go all in once. I bought in for $50,000, and I cashed out for $50,247.
Let's go.
So you can't do that without playing hands, just so you know.
And you got the rake, you son of a bitch.
So, but no, the one hand that I did play at the big table was super stupid. I had pocket queens, and as a joke, I raised to $1.
Hilarious.
Under the gun, raised to $1 with queens. Before it got back to me, it was 6-bet shoved for $1,400. And I actually just folded because I'm pretty sure that's a fucking fold. 6-bet shove for 2,800 big blinds. I didn't put it in a solver, but I'm pretty sure that's a fold.
Would you know how
every
to?
time.
I was like,
what the fuck?
I mean, if you're sitting on 50K and like for 1,200, I have a pocket pair. Like, I can beat Ace King today.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky spot.
Would you have called with Ace King suited? What did you need to call there? Aces only?
Yeah.
Would you have folded kings? If you would have folded kings, I'm going to take your dick at the end of the podcast. I'm going to keep it in a jar under my kitchen sink. What the fuck?
That's the second time you've threatened me with having to turn in my dick for.
I'm the worst.
Second time today. I don't mean in general. There's probably been 30 instances.
Don't kink shame me in front of my friends.
All right. Let's use Sam for what he's good for here.
Great.
Let's sort out a lot of this nonsense. Here,
stop. From dick jokes to Sam. There you go. Intro Sam. This is great.
We specialize in transitions here.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the last calendar year or so, TCH Dallas had their CO revoked. They appealed that decision to the Board of Adjustments. Mm-hmm. They surprisingly won. The sentiment was that they were going to lose that and just have to appeal to a higher level, and that was just part of the process was let's just go lose this one real quick and whatever. But they actually won that judgment. And since then, a Dallas building official, unnamed, I guess, appealed that decision and won judgment with a judge that said that's going to be upheld. So now that is expected to go to the Texas Supreme Court. I'm not certain the timeline of that. But now unrelated to the situation, or perhaps related to the situation, I guess you don't really know, is this House Bill 732 that's proposed by Gene Wu out of Houston, which amends Texas Penal Code 47.04, which is the legal jargon that everybody is using for these clubs currently in Texas.
So like a lot of the story and the narrative out there currently that like some other poker news people are repeating and stuff is that, oh my God, Texas poker could be shut down as early as January. This is scurry. And that they don't think that they have Jean. And by the way, why are you calling him Jean? I've been calling him Jean. Is it not Jean?
I think it's Gene.
It's Gene.
Was your clue that he was an Asian man?
It's Gene. It's not Jean. That could be a Jean.
State Representative Gene Wu. Yeah.
Okay, oopsies.
not Sean.
So essentially, my understanding of it is that it changes the wording to private residence from private place. So the loophole, if you will, that these clubs are operating under right now is that many, many, many years ago, Texas law decided, there's no casinos, so there'll be no poker. And someone stepped up and said, well, poker's not gambling. Poker's fine. And they said, well, okay, but no, formal poker was the intent. That's the argument, is that no, formal poker is the intent. People can play in their neighborhood. They can get together. You can have 7 people sit around the table and self-deal, and, no one's taking a rig. No one's benefiting from the game. There's no house, right?
They're not litigating Monopoly or Parcheesi.
Correct. It's the same thing. It's a game of skill. You can sit around and you can play. Well, the loophole that these clubs have found is to say, well, private place. Okay, so we'll have a private club. And we talked a lot about that with Sam the first time they came on the podcast, and the whole evolution of the concept and how it came about. Well, now the fear is that if you change it from private place to private residence, is that Texas Card House, the Lodge, Red Star, all these clubs are not private residents. These are businesses. They're private clubs, just like a country club. And so they're not residences. Nobody lives there. So that would close this loophole.
It would, as it stands right now, that the current condition of that bill that the public has eyes on, it does look like it's a pretty ominous bill for the poker industry. However, there's 2 pieces to that bill. The previous session, 2021, same state representative came up with a licensing and regulation bill allowing the counties to decide if they would allow poker clubs and then how many they would allow by issuing licenses that they could cap by their population. And so this House Bill 732 is going to have some similar attachments to it like that with licensing and regulation. So it's a 2-part process. It would license and regulate the businesses to do what they're doing in counties that approve it, and then also take away that close the loophole for anyone else to do it, and put it back to what I guess his interpretation of the reasons why it was written that way. Keep poker in the houses, not for profit, not for business. Keep that game separate from the licensed operations, and again allowing the counties to decide if they're even going to license operations at all. So it's not a big swoop to close everything down. It's just to separate the two. You have your home games, which are like you said, playing with friends in your house, in your basement or whatnot, and then you have the businesses, and only the businesses that are licensed and regulated by the counties.
And do you think that it would stay on this hourly model, or do you think there would be an opening for doing it in a different manner if they're licensed and regulated?
Even with license and regulation, you still wouldn't be allowed to do any other form of making profit off of it without changing the other sections of the penal code where it talks about the economic benefit and who's allowed to have it and who's not allowed to have it. So I mean, a city license and city regulation wouldn't necessarily mean increased fees and or even rake, if that's kind of the direction you were thinking. It really probably wouldn't have that impact. Legally it couldn't unless you change the other sections of the penal code too.
Because it does. The time charge model does just change. It's one of the things that makes Texas poker what it is that time charge model and paying on your way out the door or prepaying. You're not seeing money leave the table. The stacks just get bigger and bigger and bigger. It only leaves when someone cashes out. It's the only time the money leaves. So
yeah. That was part of the Gene Wu statement, was that they're creating a for-profit gaming experience, and that's why the original penal code existed, was because the state didn't want that.
Yeah, and again, he had the licensing bill. He's more just for bringing, in my opinion, like, and from who I've talked with in the office, just bring some more clarity to the issue. It's not a matter of being for or against it, but if you're going to do it, if you're going to have an industry, almost all industries, whether it's a elevator or building bridges or vending machines, they're most likely licensed and regulated. So businesses should be, and then your home, private games should be separate from those. I think that's more the intention of his bill rather than swinging the axe on poker. He's had positive poker legislation in the past, and has been on the side of some other gaming expansion. He hasn't been opposed to things like that either.
I think an assumption that when you only see the surface levels of the facts about Gene's proposed bill and stuff, is you're like, oh, well, this must be a lawmaker who is now deep in the pockets of neighboring state casinos and their lobbyists, and that this is, Choctaw or Shreveport, coming after Texas, taking away some of their, casino revenue. How would you respond to that assumption?
Those things are definitely exist, but I think a lot of times those are blown way out of proportion. And when it comes to poker, if you're talking about gaming expansion, full scale casino regulation, absolutely yes. There are outside influences that are heavily opposed and working behind the scenes to make sure Texas doesn't get that, because they have interests in other states like Louisiana and your Oklahomas and your Las Vegas. But when it comes to poker, no, primarily it truly is just a matter of the state not knowing what it is. There's 151 state reps and there's 30 senators. And so the odds of any more than 10 between that 181 collected knowing about poker or actually playing poker, and not just like, oh yeah, I've played poker with my friends at a barbecue. Like, no, playing poker, they don't even, if you tell them what rake is, they don't know. What is rake? You have to define it. You have to explain it to them as if they've never played the game. And so what's fine, that's the biggest barrier, is they don't understand what it is. You tell them poker and they think, oh, I saw in the news one time it was, shots fired and underground, drugs and girls and alcohol at some underground illegal casino. That's not what these clubs are. They need education on that. That's the biggest barrier to what we're doing, is they're just not educated on what the industry is.
So let's talk about that more. I'm still so surprised and shocked how many people I come into contact with when I'm not playing poker. I'm doing something, non-poker related, which isn't often, but I still run into so many people, Texas residents, Austin residents that don't know that poker is legal in Texas. Like, should there be an effort to educate more the general populace, not necessarily just these lawmakers?
I'm helping create, just that. I have a handful of clubs, won't necessarily name drop 100% yet because it's not.
They're the good ones.
It is not officially filed, but it is being filed. But there's a handful of some very reputable clubs that are getting together to create an association to raise that awareness, to protect us in the legislature from bills that might be negative. And again, if you read HB 732 as it stands right now, you should absolutely interpret that as like a holy shit moment. But as more information will come out, we'll see that that's not as bad as it is. But it just shows that the state is finally recognizing us. Whether they're good bills or bad bills, there's going to be, we're going to draft some good ones and we're going to defend ourselves from bad ones. But it's all positive, in my opinion, that the state is finally recognizing an industry that's been under the radar and kind of been mom and pop shop for too long, and now is trying to legitimize.
Well, and the other thing you were talking about is people will say, you mentioned, I saw this thing on the news about shots fired and this and that and girls and booze and stuff like that. I think a lot of people need to understand that stuff is some underground house game that exists because there's no legal alternative. I think that I've noticed, I mean, of course there's still home games that operate all the time, but I've noticed that I think they're far more on the up and up than they were before these clubs existed. Because if you want to compete in the poker space nowadays, you've got to run a clean operation.
Yeah, it's got to be above board.
Yeah.
Not to say that bad things don't happen at poker clubs too. They do. But I mean, if you look as a whole, how many clubs are operating 24 hours a day across 50 cities in the state of Texas, they're doing pretty damn good.
Yeah.
If you really take it as a whole. And so that's what you highlight. You highlight the security, you highlight the jobs that it's doing, you highlight the safety and the experiences that they're having, so that when, the association that I'm putting together and we're out spreading the word specifically in the legislature, because that's exactly what they're going to say. Like, oh, I heard about poker and it's all these bad things. And you go and you show them pictures of charity events. You talk about the Toys for Tots, the food drive, all the things that are coming up, all the good things that they're doing, highlighting security. And again, it's just about getting them awareness out. They need to know what these clubs really are, and highlighting those things are going to be pretty much the main thing that the association that I'm putting together will do.
So what does that education look like in terms of, like action items? Are you creating like PSA style ads or any type of like media to educate people? Is it more just like the boots on the ground lobbyists that are taking people out to lunch and educating people one-on-one? Like, what does that look like, that process?
Two streets. There's the kind of the legislative street, and then there's the citizen street, the population street. And so my focus is more on the legislative street. And so what that looks like to us is bringing those legislators to events. Like, we just hosted one at a card club in Houston. We had a charity tournament, and we brought in a couple of state legislators, state representatives to come see it, announce, shuffle up and deal. And yeah, they gave all the proceeds from the club. They didn't tax the players. All the fees that the club made that day, we donated to their charity. We brought them out, and they saw, what it is. And you're talking about people all shapes and sizes, ages, races,
grandmothers.
Yes. And they were out here on a Sunday afternoon playing poker in a safe spot. It was legit. The staff was wearing, coat and ties, looking like $1 million. The place felt great. It was lit up. And yeah, that's the legislative path. It looks like more just bringing them in. How can you raise awareness by truly seeing it and campaigning and kind of grassrooting there, because that club has 10, 12,000 members in that area. I mean, those are voting populate. Those are district people. Those people vote on these elected officials, and so seeing them back in their community is a huge spot for them too. It raises money for their charities. We take pictures, they take pictures, and we promote it. And that's my direction. The other one will be, social media, campaigning these clubs together. Using all these clubs have pretty big name brands behind them. I mean, using their outreach and their social media to kind of give a central message. And finally, they're all competing together, but they all need to understand that if one goes down, we kind of all go down together. Unless you're doing something, absurd on the side, like booking or doing something random, that's on you if you fuck up. But as a whole, the clubs need to have like kind of one, needs to be licensed and regulated. And if they're not going to do it at the statewide level, if the state's not going to do it, they need to do it themselves. They need to kind of come up with the best business practices on how to charge for tournaments, how to separate for cash games, how much security do you need per table. Like, there should be some standards and procedures across the entire industry. And finally, these clubs are kind of coming on board. And so, like, those are the two streets. There's the legislative information and awareness building, and then there's the standards and procedures kind of our own, just like these clubs need to come together and operate and regulate themselves.
Does your association have a name yet?
Most likely going to be called Texans for Texas Hold'em.
Can I pitch you an alternative?
Sure.
How do you like the sound of Caitlin's Boys?
Caitlin's Boys. Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out how I can put myself at the center of the story and that sound like the best way.
Well, pause the podcast. Let me call the team right now and see what they think.
No, we don't
I
need to
know
pause it.
Texas
Just
for
call
Texas
them.
Hold'em is very great ring to it.
Yeah.
Put them on the spot. We won't pause the podcast.
We're looking at Texans for Texas Hold'em. We've dropped the filings, and we're just waiting for everything literally to be locked and loaded. And then you'll start to see our brand around. And like I said, we've got several very reputable, good brand clubs that have got behind us.
That's so exciting. It's so hard. I think one of the hardest challenges that I faced when I was, trying to promote and work with poker clubs directly is how hard it is to get positive media attention. How hard to get like a local news crew to come down and say, look, it's something positive and wonderful going on here, something interesting and fun and cool and different. And they're like, okay, what, was anyone shot?
Yeah, exactly.
Did anyone get robbed?
Robbery? Yeah.
Who was in on it? And then they're right there, if it bleeds, it leads kind of a thing. But it is a challenge to get that positive media on poker.
I think if a woman could win $10 million in the main event, the game would just explode.
I'm trying.
Everybody.
I know that too when I'm trying.
The people that would flock to this game and then understand what it's really all about would just be exponential. It'd be enormous. Like, people thought that Moneymaker made a big difference. I think that if a woman won the main event, it would be a similar bubble or maybe larger.
I'm trying. The numbers for me personally, obviously I want to win the main event, but I think that's like a slam dunk. Obviously, if a woman were to win the main event, I think that's a very fair assumption that there would be like a new, different type of poker boom if we had, a media presence with women at the center of it on the level of a Queen's Gambit. Absolutely. But how do we get there?
Well, someone's just got to win. I mean, it's going to happen. It's a matter of time, right? More women are playing poker today than there were 5 years ago, I think.
I think people debate that. I think people debate whether or not that there's growth in terms of women in the population of poker players.
By percentages or by pure numbers, do you think?
I don't know. But I mean, when this debate was going back and forth a while ago and D-Negs related it to the WNBA and like there was some back and forth conversation about it. Shoot, I just lost my train of thought.
It's so not the WNBA. That's like a horrible comparison.
Yeah, well, I think, wasn't the conversation like women just want to watch like Kardashians and reality TV? If they wanted women to be equal in sports, they'd be watching the WNBA. Something like that, I think, was sort of the...
Yeah, but poker's not a sport. It's different. It's just different, right? Basketball is a game that is, you're watching purely for the athletic prowess of the participants, okay? Yeah. And nowadays, it's not popular to say, but I mean, I'm sorry, a person, let's just say a person that is 6'9" and can run a 3.9 40 and can jump, could dunk if the ball was, if the hoop was 14 feet high, is going to be more impressive to watch than someone who is 5'9", is slower, and can't dunk on a 10-foot rim. Okay, it's less exciting to watch. Poker, if you have a woman sitting across the table from a man, they are 100% equal. Equal in every possible way.
I think we need to be careful. But we're getting into some gender politics water here that I don't know that I want to back you on. But yeah, you can finish that.
I'm just saying that it's almost more compelling to watch women play poker because of the numbers game and the fact that...
And the titties.
If you grab any random 9-handed table from the World Series of Poker main event, if there's one woman at the table, that's a standout table, because most of them are going to be 9 men. So if you had a woman at the final table, I mean, I would venture to say half the audience is going to be like, holy shit.
I think a lot of people are rooting for women in poker, and something that I've been talking a lot about with my coach recently and with other women in poker is that because there are so fewer women in poker, right, it's easier to rise to the top as a female. If you're a top female in your field, you have less hurdles to get less other bodies to best or, outshine than you would if you were a man in a pool that's like 10 times the size, right? But what that does, I think, a lot to women in poker is it gives them too many opportunities too fast that they're not ready for. Where, a male player starting out, he gets some experience, he gets some training, and he has to really, take the time and effort to be afforded to the next level, and he gets the time to prepare. I think a lot of times women can jump up to nosebleed stakes the minute they get a little bit of notoriety or a single tournament win, and they can jump to the front of that line. And I think a lot of times those women will receive burnout because it's so much so fast, not just in terms of the elevation of stakes, the elevation of skill, all of that. I think also because you also are receiving attention and media and criticism and trolls. And so that's just sort of my theory. I don't have anything to say other than like you can look at these women who are sort of a flash in the pan and then go away. I don't want to disrespect anyone by saying their names, but you can look at women in poker that, oh wow, they were around for what happened to them? Oh, they're working in the business. They moved to become an executive for a startup where they can get paid, $200,000 to $500,000 a year and not have a man tell them they're a hoary cunt to their face every day. You know what I mean?
So maybe we need to start smaller. Maybe we need to take my South Dakota idea and just bus the
We're all
best
going to
women
South
players in the
Dakota.
country to Cadillac Jacks. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so Cadillac Jacks. Yeah. Dialing back, you got reached out to by the WPT for winning a tournament?
What do you mean?
When we were talking about it in the beginning, like it was somebody from the WPT reached out to do an article on you for, was it for?
I think it had more to do with my comedy videos that I broke through with.
Okay.
Um,
I was going to say, like, do they know that I won the 2019 spring main event at Cadillac Jacks?
They
in
can't.
South
They
Dakota?
can't possibly know, or you'd be on the landing page.
Hello.
The spring main. It was the spring one?
Well, it was a main event.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a spring main event.
But I think another thing that always sort of frustrates me on the conversation is in that same conversation of why can't we get more women to watch poker, whatever. I look at my own numbers on my YouTube channel, which is YouTube vlogs, comedy videos. I go to the YouTube studio, the analytics, and I look at the breakdown of men and women in my audience of a female poker player in the space that is not educational, that is not, I have like sometimes I think the highest percentage of women I've ever seen on there when I check that stat is like 3%. 2 to 3% of my viewers are women. And I am trying to make custom content that appeals to ladies,
Yeah, is it not just the way you market it? Because raising awareness, you don't have to be good at it to like it. Like, I love football. I watch it every week, but I fucking suck at football. I haven't played since junior high. I don't have to be good to like the game. Like, we don't have to have a woman win the main event just so females will suddenly like poker. Like, they should like poker. Like, we're not marketing the sport right. Like,
I think so.
Have you talked to like Poker Face Ash or Ashley Sleeth or anybody like that to see what their numbers are? I'd be curious to see if their numbers are similar.
I can definitely reach out to them and see, but I imagine it somewhere. I mean, just the audience consuming male poker, the audience consuming poker content is predominantly male because predominantly there are males in the sport. So I think Sam's absolutely right that maybe it's not necessarily we need a miracle for a woman to win, the main event when no one's final tabled since the 90s. But
if your audience is 3% female, what is Rampage's? Like 0.6%
I think Doug,
female?
I think Doug shared his once and it was somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, it's still got to be much, much greater. Even though you're seeing 3%, it's probably 6 times what Brad Owens is as far as females.
I mean, I hope so. I definitely, I think one of the best things that I do to promote women in poker is that weekly game where I found this group of ladies that want to learn how to play poker and play every week. They have a certain level of, they're all in different levels, but they have, a level of disposable income. They're women in business and teaching them how to, they're going from playing sit and goes to playing cash this week. And they're very exciting. And every week they bring new and new friends from their community that want to come and play. So I think these smaller events sometimes can be a lot more effective than some of the grander aspirations we can have to promote the game for women.
So back to this House bill,
Yes,
Sam,
yes.
could you talk a little bit about the process? Because that was eye-opening to me when we were talking as we were getting set up here before we had everything recording, is you were talking about how they basically file this bill. They're not going to talk about it till January, the new legislative session, but it can be amended between now and then.
Yeah, I mean, the real kind of elementary version of how the legislature works is it happens every other year, every odd year, from January to July. And you can file bills ahead of time. I mean, bill filing started a couple weeks back. And so bills are kind of pre-game, if you will, pre-season for the session has started with bill filing right now. But there's 5 checkpoints for a bill to pass through before it'll land on the governor's desk to either be signed into law or vetoed. And so there's a number of points along the way. We've got a couple bills that we're introducing that will start out in the House, and each bill will get assigned to a House committee, depending on what type of bill it is. Oil and gas go to committee. Gaming bills go to one committee. So everything gets separated via committee. That's like checkpoint number one. And so this particular bill, going direct specifically to 732, was pre-filed. So it's holding a place, and all along the way, at each checkpoint, it can be amended. And so it will receive, it will kind of merge with what I'm sure is being filed as we speak right now, the remainder of that bill, which is the rest of that full licensing language. But you're talking about 25 pages worth of license and regulation, talk explaining how each county can decide, how the counties will decide if they have them or not, and then how the counties will regulate how many they have and how much they'll charge for a license and an application and all those types of things. It's an incredibly detailed process. And so that bill, as we're understood right now, and again, we will definitely keep our eyes on it to see if it does turn positive like it should. But that bill was filed to hold place to then capture a lot more language, which will then capture much more than just that one provision of changing the definition of private place.
So we'll have to have you back on in the spring, and then again in the summer, and then again.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to keep coming back and giving this sort of the legislative update.
Only if you call it Caitlin's Boys.
Yeah, I'll give the Caitlin's Boy report.
If we do it in the spring, maybe we could stream it from South Dakota when we all go up to win the.
I don't know if live streaming's made it to South Dakota yet, but we can try. We'll
do they have,
try.
Do they have internet there?
Yeah. So they got dial up.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh.
My idea before the podcast was that we load up a bus full of the best players in Austin or Texas in general, and we just go to South Dakota to try and reclaim this title that Sam won. What year did you win?
2019.
2019. So we go up there to reclaim this title.
Still.
And I believe Sam said he would take the prop bet of any Texas player over the entire field to win this event.
Literally, we can find that action out there, I promise you.
So this casino got left behind in the 80s?
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it's an unbelievably sad and stupid reason why I'm even there. I'm there for my dad's funeral. That's the whole reason why I'm up in South Dakota. But I'm with my brother, and I'm telling him, like, Joseph, I got to get out of here for a night, man. Like, the whole family's up there. Like, everybody's sad. It's all miserable. I'm like, Joseph, we just got to get the fuck out of here for one night. Like, there's a casino like 2 hours down the road in Sioux Falls or Grand. I don't know where the fuck it is. It doesn't matter. But Joseph's like, all right, I'll drive. Let's go. And so, we go. I tell him, he don't know much about poker. But I'm like, we'll swap 10%. It's a $200 main event. Like, what's the worst that can fucking happen? I'm like, well, it's a real main event. There's 10, 12 tables worth of people.
The main event is a $200
This was the spring. It started out 10 days earlier with like a $20 tournament. And then, a $75 midweek, banger. And then all with the Friday night, 250 rebuy or whatever.
They have satellites into that $200?
Probably, yeah. So, yeah, what's
you should have to give Randy a hand job in the bag and get satellite. That's the satellite. Get right in there.
I'm telling my brother, I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? We'll fire a couple bullets, $800 each, whatever. But my first bullet number one, $200. I just run like the fucking sun. Like, just aces, queens, any flush draw comes through, every set comes through. But I mean, yeah, it was also kind of miserable because they were playing poker from way long, old school poker. I mean, if you re-raise, a 3-bet or 4-bet, that's aces. Or they always look at you. That must be aces. The boy's got to have top set again. It's like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, if we took players to that, let's pass some legislation first, and then I'll load up a bus and we'll drive them to South Dakota.
That'll be our reward.
Yeah,
I am in.
Done.
I am in on that. I did not realize that the main event was so affordable.
Very affordable. And that's a rebuy. If you want to fire bullets, you can.
Well, I mean,
single rebuy.
Crazy Joe fired like 3.
The next biggest little game in Texas. If I don't get smoked and there's any of that $50K left, I'll save a few for bullets for that, for sure. I will for
if
sure.
If we take $50K, we're absolutely winning that tournament. Now, it might be for a net loss.
But we'll get it done.
We'll ship that bitch.
Yeah. It's about the trophy. It's not about the money.
Yeah, it's pride. A lot of pride.
Was there a trophy?
I'm sure my picture's still on the wall.
Come on, let's go, Daddy Sam.
Fuck yes. This could be an absolute blast. I think we got to go, but we got to get at least 30 people. We got to fill the bus.
Okay, TBD.
Well, then my bet's not very good. That's a 30. If we take 30 people, there was only probably 70 people in the whole bench. Like, so I'm not going to get good odds on my money taking 30 people. Like,
we blew this 5K guarantee out of the water.
Yeah.
We got 2,500 up top. Let's go. 2.5 large, as it were.
Yeah. First, second, and third place isn't even going to cover the trip expenses, but we're doing it. We're doing it.
So, let's pick your brain a little bit. So speaking of bills being passed, more regulation within the industry, the Lodge recently came out and they sort of standardized the way that they are doing their tournament buy-ins. Can I pick your brain a little bit about what you think about that change?
You have to inform me on that change.
So before it varied
difference?
greatly from tournament to tournament, sort of what they were raking from the tournament. Craig may be a little bit more educated, but they basically created a sliding scale to where the monthlies, the dailies, they sort of all have a standardized rake amount. But can you speak onto it?
No rake.
Or
Admin
whatever. Admin fee, excuse me.
Admin fee being basically, typically if someone says, you know, this tournament is a $600 buy-in. Let's take the monthly monster at the Lodge, for example. $600 buy-in. The buy-in is $500 goes to the prize pool, $100 goes to the Lodge. The Lodge for running the tournament, paying dealers, paying rent, all of their overhead. A portion of that does go directly to the dealers because gratuity in a tournament is tricky. Gratuity in a cash game is so different. All the chips have a cash value. You win a hand, you flick $1 to the dealer. That's the same as handing them a dollar bill. Flick a 5 to him, same as handing him a 5. You want a big pot, flick a 5 to the dealer. Great. Dealer says, thank you, taps it, puts it in their pocket or in their tray, whatever. But in a tournament, the chips don't have monetary value. They have some value at the end of the tournament, sort of, but you can't give them to the dealer. They're of no value to the dealer. So when you cash out in a tournament, you have the option to tip the dealer. But this has actually been a lot of discussion of late about how much do you tip in that instance. Sometimes it might be a $600 tournament. You fired 4 bullets, you're in for $2,400 and you cash for $1,500. And it's like, how much do I tip the dealer? I still lost money. And then when you win $50,000, how much do you tip the dealer? It's really kind of up in the air. And I know that a lot of dealers just despise dealing tournaments because the smart dealers, at least, they know what their time is worth, and they sit there and they go, wow, I deal a tournament and I spend 12 hours dealing the tournament and I make $150. Yeah. And I spend 12 hours dealing cash and I make $600. It's not even close. Yeah. So what the Lodge does, some people look at that and they go, wow, it's $500 entry fee with a $100 admin fee, but a portion of that goes to the dealers. Where it gets tricky is when you bust and you want to re-enter the tournament on the next flight, you pay the full $600 again. Mm-hmm. So it's good for the dealers again, but you're also paying the full admin fee again. It's not like that at casinos. At casinos, the $500, the admin fee would be more like $60 or $65. Mm-hmm. And then if you choose to re-enter the tournament, you're paying just the $500 because you've already paid to enter the tournament. Okay. What the Lodge has done is reduced some of those fees because they got called out for them being high. And I'm not sure about the re-entry model. I think they're still paying the fee every time. Right. So this Black Friday event that they just did, that was huge. They crushed it was a $100K guarantee and the prize pool was like 2.5 times that.
Yeah. I think they may turn that into their monthly event. I'm not telling them what to do, but I think 600 was getting a little steep for the community firing 4 and 5 bullets. But I think 300 is great. And how many runners were in that total? As long as the economics work out for them, where it works out for them to make a little bit of money and where it works out for the dealers to make a little bit of money, I think that's a $300 buy-in is so much more palatable amongst players. I mean, that you're talking a max 1-2 buy-in. I think it ironically makes it harder sometimes to bag because the skill level is so all over the place. When you lower it to $300, they're definitely a lot more recreational players. So it may be a sweet spot too, where some of the out of town talent doesn't deem it worthy to come in just for that. Yeah, nope. Right? They're not going to fly in. They may not even drive in from 3 hours away for a $300 tournament. They're just like, fuck it, whatever. Or if it gets huge, maybe they will. Maybe they'll come in and try for some of the later flights. They can look on Poker Atlas and see that, oh my God, they got 300 players on the first flight of day one. Did you play it? It's a tournament, Caitlin. Sorry.
The only tournament I'm playing is the South Dakota. Like that'll be my next tournament. It's on
Cadillac
the schedule.
Jacks. Book
You're
it.
smart for that. You're smart for that.
Spring main event. I might play a warm up, like a $30 warm up in the early part of the series.
Well, that's like the midweek banger. Remember? If your question was like, do I think that's like legal or not? I mean,
No, who cares about that?
I wouldn't even begin to answer that because just how gray everything is. Like, I guess I would answer it with, I'm, lucky enough to know the lodge's attorneys and team behind the scenes, and so yeah, they do a lot of good work, and I'm sure they fact checked everything they've do a million times over. But if you're just more asking, like, well, how do I feel like about that as a player? That's how. I think you actually said it backwards when you were explaining it. In the casino, I mean, I would go up to Choctaw every time the WP and WSOP come along, and that $1,500 main event was $1,500 every fucking time. Like it was never a discount. Like and so their fees might have been less in the ratio, percentage to what the percentage the lodge might be taking. I don't know. I'm not doing that math, but that was standard.
I feel like I played like a 400 up there a couple years ago, and I think I re-entered once, and I thought it was like 460 and then 400 the second time. I'm almost certain of it.
I will fact check it.
Maybe they've changed it now.
Yeah,
that was a while ago because I hate tournaments. So I think
standardizing a fee that varies is fine. Like we have some clubs that charge, our even in the cash, their fees vary. Like we're free from 10 a.m. to noon, and then after noon, between noon and 10, we're happy hour, and then after happy hour with it. So I mean, access fees, in our club opinion, are legal, and whatever they are, they are.
Do you think they're
standard? I mean, you don't get you can't play the tournament for any cheaper than I can play the tournament. Like we both have the same fee. So I mean, and yeah, I feel like that's pretty. Like it or leave it. I feel like as long as you're being transparent, now I'm just speaking as a consumer. As long as you're being transparent with me, and it's not, they tell me it's a $600 with 500 here and 100 here.
I'm going to come down
either
to
buy it or leave it.
The most basic free market capitalist at that point. If you're charging too much for your tournaments, people aren't going to play. If people are playing, then you're charging the right price. Yeah. If you're making your guarantees, you're charging the right price.
Apparently, I wasn't here, but apparently they doubled the guarantee. So
almost
they're doing something right.
I want to say the prize pool was like 270.
270. It's almost $3.
Normally, lodge tournaments pretty much on point.
Is unbeatable.
Pretty good.
So do you think there's a path to standardization? So none of us are tournament experts, clearly. but is there a path to standardizing the hourly rate? Because I know, like, for instance, TCH Dallas is probably the highest in the state at $16 an hour. And then the lodge remains one of the lowest in the state at about $10 an hour. So is there a path where we say what is legal and right to be charged for an hourly or a membership fee?
No, I don't think you can do that. I mean, you can't tell grocer how much they can or can't charge. Like, I mean, things change. A gallon of milk at Randall's might be cheaper or more expensive than a gallon of milk at HEB. It is what it is. It is like that. Kind of just goes back on transparency, because you're always going to have. If you standardize that, you'd put yourself in a situation where you couldn't have an immaculate club that buys out a brand, a real high end space, and like, look, if you want to be high end, we're high end. Like, we charge more, but look what we have, a chandelier, water fountain in the deal, whatever. And so you got to allow them to do that, and the market will dictate what they charge. But what needs to be standardized across the board is how you charge. Whether the by the hour, and making sure we're not raking, or making sure that we're not making money in other ways, like making sure if you have a bar that at 2 a or at 1:59 and 59 seconds in AM, like no more alcohol sales, like those things need to be made
Rounders
sure.
is really really strict about the 2 a.m. rule.
Yeah.
Their game girls come around, and if they prefer to be called cocktail waitresses,
which is what
but they come around and like take your drink. They're like, last sippy, baby.
Yeah. Like those things for sure should be standardized and kind of regulated. Like I said, whether the state does it, and we won't create a gaming entity, but maybe you put
those are the Caitlin's boys.
Yeah. Basically, Caitlin's boys need to go out, and we need to create standard operating procedures across the board like that. I mean, no, you can choose your own price.
Yeah, that's a point of competition.
Yeah.
I like the idea of clubs that are kind of no frills that maybe have a lower cost, and I also like the idea of clubs that are high on the frills and
You have
very,
that
very
everywhere
nice.
you go. I mean, in retail, you have Walmart and you have Neiman Marcus. That's fine. Like there are two perfectly good, streams there. Like that's absolutely fine to do.
All right, are we ready to go to our top 5?
Top 5. Two things we've recently talked about. So top 5 reasons that Texas poker needs to stay legal.
Keep Texas poker legal. Go, Kayla's boys.
Number 5 is tournaments, right? The alternative being like poker is going to exist in Texas, whether it's legal or not. And we all know that because in our lifetimes, we've lived here when it's not. And it just exists privately, right? It's home games. They may or may not be raked. There's a dealer that's definitely getting tipped and whatnot. But you can't have $100,000 guarantee with, 700 people or however many people played in that tournament. You can't have that unless you have this giant space with a pile of tables and a bunch of dealers. I mean, you need organization for all of that stuff, and you can't have
infrastructure.
That. Right? I mean, the largest home game in town prior to these clubs might have had 3 or 4 tables. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know of any larger than that.
Yeah, there's some in Houston that did, but again, that's just stretching.
They can't advertise a tournament publicly when it's illegal, So these giant tournaments that are just great for the local economy in ways that don't even involve poker, right? All these people coming in for poker, they need hotel rooms to stay at. They go to restaurants, they eat, they do other things in town while they're here. They come for a 3-day tournament, they bust the first day, like shit, they're here, they're going to do stuff.
We've made a ton of notes on that, like, kind of in my business, spreading that awareness with legislators. It's not just the number of employees that I'll use the lodge, that the lodge has. When they host one of those, $1 million mayhem 10-day deals, you're talking about, the cleaning company gets doubled, the security company gets doubled, hotels around there, the restaurants in that place, that Whataburger is fucking packed. Like, you can't find a spot in that Whataburger during that $1 million mayhem. It's not just what the lodge is doing in the lodge with its employees. It's like a 5-mile radius, if not even greater, of stimulating the bars, restaurants, and hotels during those series.
Right.
It's nuts.
And downtown, okay, y'all, if you come to play at a Lodge Mayhem series, that's in Round Rock, which is 19 miles north, there is a downtown in Round Rock. If you want to go downtown and you want the experience, whatever, but you're going to be paying like $14 for a cocktail. You go out on Round Rock, honey, $5 well drinks, you get it done. You want to get drunk, it's in Round Rock.
And if we're being honest, the service is going to be way better.
Oh my God. If you want like a
better.
hot hipster to like pretend like you are just inconveniencing her day, then yeah, go to the Domain. If you want your dude friends to have like a really cute goth girl in lingerie, yeah, Rose Room, that's where you're going. But if you want to get drunk affordably, Round Rock is where it's at.
Cheaper Uber too. Right? It's right there.
Is the show sponsored by like Round Rock Square? The tavern?
Yeah.
Should we reach out to the tavern and see if...
Yeah. They have like silent dance parties. Y'all, downtown Round Rock.
Number 4 is competition. We just talked about that, but another thing of competition is the alternative being these underground games. Before these clubs existed, you go to some of these underground games and they were really scummy. I mean, they just... When there's no alternative for things, there's no reason to ever do anything at a high level. So the rake was super high at these underground games.
The amenities didn't justify it at all.
No,
there's nothing
not at
given
all.
back.
Like you were saying, if you want to charge $16 an hour and you have all these nice features in your club and it's in a nice area and all that stuff. I mean, no, they're just like, hey, we can rake more because fuck you. Where else are you going to go?
The game girls aren't cleaning, but you can do a line off of one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, just super gross. So I mean, it's just great. I've explained to people that I think the underground scene in Austin is as healthy as it's ever been right now amidst having all these clubs. I think COVID is partly responsible for that, but it's because the clubs have kind of forced them to at least a minimum standard when they can just go to the lodge and pay $10 an hour and have a game 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Why would they ever come to your private game? Well, here's why. But there has to be reasons why now.
Yeah,
it's not just because, it's fucking Monday and it's the only game that happens on Mondays, so I'm here. So competition, definitely an important reason. Number 3, access. Again, if the if the alternative is just private home games, you need to be invited. You need to be allowed in. You could make that argument for the clubs, but because they're private and they're membership only. But from some of them, it's 18, some of them it's 21. That's about the only requirement.
Yeah,
and
so many of them are 24
ID
hours. So, I mean, you can literally play on your schedule. Like, if you want to play in the morning, night, wait till the kids go to sleep, whatever it is, like, you can go. Access is huge, for sure.
And as long as you are a citizen, you have an ID that you can show them and fill out some paperwork, you can become a member. They're not going to keep you out based on
your age, maybe.
Yeah, age. But that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, I think we can all agree that you should at least be 18 years of age, and it's up to the club if they want to say 21. And stay the fuck home when you
get over 75. Sorry. No. Please come play with us, Daddy. I miss you.
It's up to me to hate on the old man causes, not you. Okay? That's my thing. Fair enough. Number 2, safety. These clubs spend a lot of money as a line item on their accounting. It's basically like rent, staff, security's next.
Is that true, Sam?
That's true.
It is very, very expensive and
not cheap.
What is the average security guard making? Like $20 an hour? I'm saying, or
well, that's part of the problem in a lot of them. Like, the guard themselves isn't making that.
The company is.
The company is charging that. And then, holidays, like I said, if you're over late night, the late hours, everything spikes and they get overtime too. And so, like, there's so many nickels and dimes that get added on top of it. And, I should have gone back to what you said for the line items. A good club, yes, that's in the line item. But, I mean, unfortunately, that's probably one of the first things to get slashed from the budget for a struggling club.
Yeah. There was I think one of the major costs for the companies that employ the security guards is their insurance. They pay asinine levels of insurance because it's not a matter of if there's going to be some sort of altercation. There's going to be an altercation, and you just run the risk of getting sued, and the insurance company pays for the defense. So it's just gonna happen. So they charge an incredible amount.
And it's preventative. A lot of the times these guards aren't tested or taken, but I like that there is always a big beefy man to carry me to my car when I'm ready to leave. Mm-hmm. That's an option. If I'm playing publicly on camera, we need to have that escort.
That's the unfortunate thing is if you have a home security system and someone plans to burglarize your home and they just choose one down the street because you have that system, you never know. It's not like they left you a note. Be like, hey, good on you for having that home security system. I was going to rob you blind, but it's one of those things that it really sucks for the club because they might pay $10,000 a month, $30,000 a month, depending on the size of the club and how many guards they have and all this. They might pay a ton of money and they don't even know what they're stopping. You never know when it works. Mm-hmm. You just hope nothing ever happens, But when it does, you sure are glad. I mean, there's no amount of money you would spend to make sure that people are safe.
No. And I know there have been maybe like 2 or 3 stories of nefarious whatever is going on locally here in Austin. But it's like, y'all, that is very, very small potatoes. And we can go through each incident and we can talk about it in greater detail. But Texas poker is safe in Texas poker clubs. I'm saying that as a lady, as a single woman, ain't no husband picking me up from the game. I say that with full confidence. Way to go, Texas poker.
To take a different angle on safety, too, if you want to talk about fairness in the game, you've got a way, way better chance of not being cheated.
Yeah, there aren't mechanics in the box at a Texas poker club.
I think on that security note, dialing back to, again, the same thing that I've been trying to do for 10 years on this industry, if it were licensed and regulated, essentially given the golden stamp of approval from the state, these clubs would then have the opportunity to hire off-duty officers, literally your PDs and your sheriff departments in your cities. Right now, some of them, depending county by county, and again, depending specifically up to them, they won't take us as a client because of the opportunity that it may or may not be illegal. May or may not be legal. And so you see, if you go to a bingo parlor, in Austin or Travis County, you're going to see a Travis County sheriff sitting right there at the front. There's going to be a squad car. His lights are going to be there. He's going to be opening up the door for you. Bingo parlors are licensed and regulated. They are given the stamp of approval. They don't have to question, is this a legal business? No, they take the client and they go secure the property, and it's safe.
So
don't
they
fuck
don't-
around
they
with
don't
an
wanna-
off-duty officer in their uniforms with a squad car parked out front.
Yeah,
I mean,
if you have a Travis County
Yeah.
deputy that's there,
Yeah.
it kind of gives the
but because
That's a
of the
great point.
gray
I'm glad you
area
brought
of the current state of its legality, a lot of clubs don't even have the opportunity to hire proper security. I mean, at that point, if you have a robbery or a shooting, I mean, good luck if you're the lodge man. I would not want to fuck with Williamson County PD or Sheriff's Department.
Yeah,
If
no.
they're there securing the property, that thing is safe 100% of the time.
Williamson County police officers are some of the scariest people walking the
You don't
planet.
mess
I want
with
y'all
them,
to know
man.
that.
That's what I'm saying. Like if it were guaranteed legal and I could hire Williamson County as my security, whew, we're good.
If you ever get a DUI or a possession charge in Williamson, honey, your life's over. Don't do that to yourself.
It's so funny how many people talk about that. Like if someone lives in Round Rock versus living in Austin, they're like, they might be having a drink at a game. I'm like, I hope you're Ubering home.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
Which is
It's
so
a
funny.
tight
It's not like a
ship.
DUI is fun in Travis County. I can't imagine, but the comparison, and everybody talks about it. Everybody talks about it.
So yeah, all these clubs have to take safety and security as high priority. It has to be a high line item expense, but we're not even in a position to where we can hire like, you would at a festival ground, or you do at bingo halls, or you see at banks. Like they hire off-duty peace officers a lot of times, and that's, that in my opinion, that's the be-all end-all for hiring security. And a lot of these clubs are in position where even if they could afford it, they can't legally contract with them.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Number 1 on the list is jobs. And this was a case that was made up in Dallas with the Board of Adjustments. They ran out of time. They had so many people that were going and making their appeal. People that have moved to Texas from all over the country who already had poker jobs.
I could name 24 people that have moved to Texas for their poker career without even thinking that hard. Players, dealers, managers. 24 without, off the top of my head. It's hundreds of people.
Yeah, it's wild. It's just, I mean, there are people like, take Joe Struzera, for example, right? He came here for a job.
With his wife, Nikita.
With the lodge. And now his wife is doing well in real estate because real estate is bananas here. And it's like, geez, they could have probably come here just for that, but ended up here because of poker and the job that came up at the lodge. And there's hundreds of stories like that where people were going. I'm on dealer forums and I read comments and stuff like that. And there are people that are like, oh, I'm just looking to get a change. I'm dealing at this place in Mississippi. Where should I go? And you read the comments, and if there's 25 comments, 23 of them are like, go to Texas. What the fuck are you thinking? Why are you even polling me? Why are you polling us? There's nowhere in the country you're going to do better than
When
you
I
do
go
in
to the
Texas.
Bellagio and play, I'm a regular when I'm in Vegas at the Bellagio 510. If a dealer finds out I'm from Texas, they come up to me on their break and they pick my brain because there are a lot of people interested in moving to Texas. They hear the tips are better, the cost of living is lower, people are less miserable in general in Texas than, Vegas is the oldest town in the country. So
in my business, this is the most important piece of ammunition that we have is the jobs. I have, all the clubs that I'm working for, I've had them turn into me, how many members do you have as far as poker playing members, and then how many people do you employ? And the numbers are just outstanding. I mean, I could easily speculate more than 4,000 jobs in the industry right now, and that's real jobs too. You're not talking about, minimum wage, $7 an hour gigs. These are, $15 an hour or tip jobs where your tips are clearing more than 40 an hour. And so, I mean, these are very real jobs, very real salary. The couple of clubs that are doing it, I can't thank them enough for doing healthcare too, using that as ammunition, pitching about what these clubs are, jobs, healthcare, real jobs, real security, those. That's literally my first bullet that I fire, in my business. That's my key ammunition right there.
Well, especially too when you, again, I always think when it comes down to legislative type of things, what's the alternative? What's going to happen if we don't do this? And that's where you talk with some of these people. What's their alternative? They're like, okay, now I have this job where I'm indoors, climate controlled, dealing cards. Now I have health care. I make $40 an hour. I can work as much as I want or as little as I want because there's a ton of it going on. So there's other people that do what I do. If I want to take a month off, I can take a month off, come back, jobs here waiting for me. I have health care. What's the alternative? Construction in 110-degree heat.
I mean, if these clubs ever went down, how many home games and how many like bullshit games are going to open up left and right.
Oh, for
it's
sure.
going to be the seediest stuff that's going to happen.
And just as a player, you're going to receive 20 text messages a day from game runners.
Who are all your best friends too. Like, hey,
and you're going to feel emotionally obligated to come support them and their business and their families. It's going to suck all the fun right out of poker. I swear to God, HB Gene Woo. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I promise you
he's an
that bill is
ally.
not
He's
scary.
an ally. He's an ally.
If that bill were just on his face as is, we would be, saying, oh no, but I promise you that's not going to be a problem.
No, thanks for coming and assuaging our fear and some of the audience's fear about the fate of Texas poker. I'm feeling a lot better having gotten into it.
I am going to glaze over the fastest hand review we've probably ever had. Comes from a bomb
Do I have
pot.
to be here?
I need to shout out two
I'm gonna
people.
take off.
Thanks for coming.
I need to shout out two people on this. The first one is Clem over at Red Star. That's where this incident happened. We get it all in a bomb pot. Not against Clem. Clem is just my neighbor who mistakenly folded and showed two of his cards. They were exposed accidentally. One of them was an ace, and the other one ended up being key to the whole situation because it made it where I had top boat on the bottom or on the top. Can't lose to quads because he folded one of them and would have made the quads.
Got it.
And the ace makes it where my opponent, who shows down, who has aces and he has two pair on the bottom. So I have 5 outs on the bottom. He has 1 out on the top. And Clem says, "You're free rolling him." And I said, "Well, there's still 1 ace." Bink. There it is. I get scooped in the bomb pot. So I just wanted to go over the definition of free roll. Free means cannot lose, like not even 1 out. Okay, so Danny Chang was the other person who needs to be, interestingly enough, unrelated yesterday. He decided to post the definition of a free roll. Talked about free roll in tournaments and a free roll in a cash game situation, much like that one. So he had to point out to people that also didn't understand, like Clem didn't understand what a free roll is, meaning you cannot lose. So
when you were done mansplaining that to Clem, did he say, "Thank you, Craig. I'm so glad you were here for a teaching moment"?
No, I don't know. I was busy cursing under my breath. Harsh but fair. You get a second chance, Sam. Do you remember the rules?
Oh, no, I don't remember the rules.
Okay, we'll let you go last. We end every episode with harsh but fair. You must say something that is true. It must be mean, but it must be fair. Mm-hmm. That's where the truth part comes in.
Can
Caitlin,
you go first?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I went to the lodge a bunch of times. I went to Red Star a bunch of times in the last couple of weeks. Jackie was out of town with the boys. I had a lot of time. Probably played more poker in the last 2 weeks than I played the whole year. So one day was the Black Friday, 100K at the lodge, and I knew you were there. And I said, I've got a plan. I'm going to embarrass Caitlin. It's going to be hilarious. So I go ahead, fire up the espresso machine, make you this fancy-ass coffee, put it in a to-go cup, drive up to the lodge. I know there's going to be just hundreds of people back in this tournament area. And I go back there like I'm with Favor or Uber Eats or something, and I'm shouting, "Gingerbread latte and a hug? Who ordered a gingerbread latte and a hug?" Thinking that everyone's going to look in disgust and you're going to be the one that's like, "Oh God, is that for me? Like, that's embarrassing." But no, you like smile, jump out of your chair, come over, give me a hug, whether I was offering it or not, and take the coffee. And you're like, "Oh my God, how did you know I needed coffee so bad?" I was like, "Cool, here you go. Thanks, I guess." You ruined it.
Harsh but fair. Sick burn, Craig.
You ruined it. You were supposed to be embarrassed. You weren't even a little red.
I know. I was very out of character and grateful for your friendship and acts of service. I'm so sorry.
You did get yelled at by the tournament director, which is good.
Yeah.
Because you had not only me, but there was another male there paying you attention. And I believe you were told that your boyfriends needed to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. I get a lot of male attention. Need more of them to fuck me, though, I think, if I'm being perfectly honest, just for my general well-being.
That is the peak of male attention, is it not?
Yeah.
That's the highest praise we offer.
It's usually not very long attention. But it's the peak my attention, and then it's over.
No, it doesn't need to last that long. As long as there is you just get you a man that can munch, I like to say.
Yikes.
Yikes. All right. Do Sam.
Sam, I really was expecting that we could come in here and just hear this horror story about how the days are over for Texas poker. It's back underground and smoking indoors, and you're going to go home smelling like an ashtray at 6 a.m. with glitter on you and everything. But
You're describing the sexiest night of my life, by the way.
But you come in here and just kind of make it sound like everything's going to be okay and don't worry about it. And I just want to be a conspiracy theorist and
I genuinely
doomsdayer.
think everything is going to be okay and that players shouldn't worry about it. I mean, the people that are getting involved, the clubs that are there's a lot of clubs that are making a lot of money. It's time to protect that investment and do this right. And they're taking it very serious this go around. And I actually say it. I think we're going to be okay.
All right, I guess I will say it then. That's harsh but fair.
There you go.
Caitlin, you're up.
All right, Craig. Your harsh but fair is that you are not the poker player on this podcast. You are the fucking dealer. And every time it comes to who's going to do a hand history, you say, oh, I have one. Me, who doesn't play professionally. Me, who spends most of the time in the box raffling cards. I want to take up the capita of the podcast that is reserved for Poker Strat. I don't want to hear what you have to say. So fuck you. Harsh but fair. I'm not as good at these as I used to be.
That's harsh but fair. You're telling me just keep throwing the cards and shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
People tell me that every time I deal, so that's good.
Okay, Sam, your harsh but fair is that you're wearing a pastel color right now, which leads me to believe that you do not know that you're a winter. You're a winter, honey. You need to be wearing more jewel tones. I don't think this is
What's a jewel tone?
A jewel tone is like jade, burgundy, like a rich, deep plum. I think those colors would look better on you because you
Know
have
your tones, Sam.
Because he's pale
Yeah,
skin
I know
with
my
light
tones.
eyes. Pale skin with light eyes. You need jewel tones. So you look like an unfashionable cad.
Take that.
Harsh but fair.
Yeah.
All right, Sam, make us cry.
I mean, yeah, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but I guess my harsh but fair would be to like women in poker. If you're waiting to win the goddamn main event just to start liking poker and taking it serious, what the fuck, man? Get in the game. There's so many people doing good and doing good things right now. Get in the game now. Don't wait for somebody to win the main event. Like,
Yeah, women, why are you being such
let's
fucking
go
pussies?
now. Like,
Don't jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
Like, lead the charge. I agree. You know what? That's not even towards Caitlin.
Women
That's just,
in
like,
poker
all
have
harsh
had it
but
too
fair,
easy
right?
for too long.
To go win it and be like, yeah, of course I won it. Not, oh my God, a woman finally won it. Fucking go win it and own that bitch. Whatever.
I love it.
Start in South Dakota.
There you go. Fuck, yeah.
Step one.
There's seats available on the bus. We're going in the spring. Let's do it.
All right, final thoughts?
Wait, he didn't get me yet.
Oh, sorry. Fuck, yeah.
I gotta.
He just did a general one.
I just did a general
He doesn't
one.
want
Alright.
to. He's
I
done
already
us before.
tagged
We can let him
guys.
go.
Hey, I'll take it.
If you want to take a pot shot,
criticism.
you're more than welcome to.
No,
Final,
no.
okay.
How could I do that?
All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning into the Texas Poker Experience. Hopefully, like me and Craig, you've had your fears assuaged about the fate of Texas poker. Look for Caitlin's Boys, aka Texans for Texas Hold'em, to promote the positive experience that poker is providing for the state and all the wonderful jobs it has created. So let's fight for Texas poker. Have a good week. Make sure to hit like and subscribe on this. Sorry we didn't get to go live. YouTube's a little twat for that.
I thought it was live on a 24-hour delay.
That's what
Yeah,
we're
it's
calling
live
it.
on a 24
Live on
hour
24
today.
hours,
So I hope you're enjoying this live 24 hours from now. My name is Caitlin Komeski. Thank you, Sam Von Kennel, my co-host Craig Sear. What's our
This is where you remind people to put the straddle on.
remember to put the straddle on.
Yeah, and don't be a nit.
Remember your catchphrase.
Yeah,
What's our catchphrase again? Thank you, Sam.
of course.
Insert catchphrase.